Good morning. Figured I'd start another one. This first one this week. Just chatting. Share this thing. I will be here for 1 hour. I have a lunch meeting that I'll need to get to, so I'll be signing off here at 11:30. It's currently 10:30. See if anybody jumps on today. Morning. I don't have your volume.
Is it just you and I, Mo?
It's just us right now. It looks like somebody else is watching, but just us. I'm just
Ah,
chatting.
you're all sobered up from last night?
Yeah, although I am tired.
How late did you stay?
I left around 11 and then talked with Vic for a bit by the car. So I didn't end up getting home until about midnight.
Oh, wake up the kids when you get home?
Oh no, no way.
You don't have a dog, do you?
I don't have a dog.
That's a good thing because the dogs would start barking if you got home, and then
Yeah, so I didn't have to worry about that.
because that's
But
what
yeah, I
happened
woke
when I
up
got
tired.
home. Got home at about 11. The dogs are barking, and yeah, all I heard was "Be quiet, shut up." Okay, I get it.
Yeah, but it was a good time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was glad to meet the two new guys. Although I'm like, let's see, one of them was Philip,
Yeah, Phil.
and then I don't know the other one. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, he was. He came in with who's the younger gentleman?
Brad.
Yeah, so he came in as Brett's friend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
That's probably where the Willow connection came from.
yep, yep, yep. Probably knew him at Willow. So,
Yeah. Yeah, they seem like nice guys.
yeah, yeah. So, my wife was reading NBC, CBS, where they're basically blaming the culture for this transgender shooter in Nashville.
Mm.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've become so jaded in that regard. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, what else is new?
Well, the only thing, as my wife said, if you hate the press, you don't hate them enough. You don't hate them enough.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, it just bothers me to a certain degree, like the hypocrisy of it, and like we're all about like empathy and sentiment until it's somebody that we have been mean to, and so now we have to find a way to still make it their fault.
Correct. Well, they went after the parents, said the parents rejected the child, except you know where the child was living? At the parents' $700,000 home.
Oh wow.
That sounds like a rejection. The parents said yes, he was in therapy. You would think he's mentally ill.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that they got him to give him back a gun. They only thought he had one gun. And no, he had more guns. But
Yeah.
I have a simple idea. If you say you're non-binary, you can't have a gun.
Yeah. I understand, but highly doubt that would ever see any progress.
Ah,
I guess
yeah.
maybe, I mean, at least at a federal level, maybe you might have some luck on a state by state type thing.
Well, the state. Remember, states do it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So a state could come in and say part of it is if you can't do your gender, yeah, there you go. CW week. Sounds like you guys were partying hard on my birthday last night too.
I'm sorry I forgot your birthday, CW.
Happy birthday. Hey, by the way, you missed Paul Vanderklay. He was talking about he was doing a thing about a conservative non-practicing Jew, and he goes, "Oh, I know one."
I actually heard that one. Yeah, that was this morning, right?
Yeah, I know one.
That's funny. I feel like I've skimmed a couple of his videos recently, and each of the ones that I skimmed, Jacob was mentioned.
Well, Jacob creates more controversy in this uh, corner, right, than anyone else.
Hmm.
Because Jacob is very blunt if he thinks you're wrong.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I appreciate Jacob's bluntness, and I also realize that he's consistently and errantly incorrect on almost everything.
Yeah, I feel kind of underappreciated by Jacob because he's only called me a heretic once.
Really?
Yeah,
Well,
and that was early on.
yeah. Well, I mean, he but like I said, so he certainly he lives he certainly resides in Paul's head quite a bit. Okay. And I'm finding that it doesn't take much to reside in Paul's head.
Yeah,
You know, I could see Paul was not an athlete
yeah,
because
it's
trash
a
talking
shame.
comes with the territory. And so
Yeah,
it's like, you know, you ignore it. I mean, you just ignore it, but they can't help but ignore it. So,
mm.
anyways, what do you want to talk about, Mo? You're just chatting. So, what do you want to chat about?
I don't know. I just come on here and try to pick up on what other people are. Phlebas said he found the release of the video of the police shooting the perp at Nashville. Have you seen that video?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
that was, yeah. Apparently, it got out pretty quick. A lot of people I know were sharing it.
Well,
Um, they were
yeah.
very
YouTube took
systematic.
it down, but
What's that?
well, I mean, I think the Nashville police wanted to show after what happened in Uvalde that they were not they're quick on the mark.
Yeah.
And it certainly showed a complete and utter difference between what happened in Uvalde, where they sat around
Hmm.
and let more children die, and what happened in Nashville, where most people believe they probably saved a lot of lives by going in there very quickly and very aggressively.
Yeah. There was I saw something come through my feed that somebody posted. I don't know if this is verified or true, but it said that one of the little girls that was killed had gotten up and pulled the fire alarm in an attempt to like distract
Uh
um
huh.
the shooter. Which, if that's true, that's pretty awesome and heroic of a 9-year old.
Yep.
Um and so which makes it feel even more tragic.
Well, like I said, I think I could understand you being jaded. I mean, it's you know, I put up on my Facebook. We need to listen to people who are mentally ill less, not more.
Mm,
We need to identify, which we've used to. Oh, this person has mental issues.
hmm.
I, sorry. If you have a penis, you're a man.
Hmm.
You could identify as a TC fly, as far as I'm concerned, but you're a man.
And for this,
Okay.
in this specific case, it was a female identifying as a man, right?
No, there's a man identifying as a female.
I thought it was the opposite. I was reading
No.
something that their LinkedIn profile had the pronouns he, him, but it
Yes.
was a female name.
Yes. It was a man. Well, let's see. Let me look him up.
I feel like this is always so confusing. Phoebus, are you referring to the video? Because yeah, with the whole body cam thing, it does kind of feel like a Call of Duty type operation.
I don't know if Americans love gun porn. I think there's a sense of
I'm sure some
justice
do,
that
which is the
somebody
tricky
was
part, right?
killed. Yeah, but
You're
I
always
mean,
going to
I
find
saw it once.
somebody that can like live out that whatever statement is being made. But yeah, that's definitely not representative of the entirety of the country.
Yeah. So the name was Aubrey Hale. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. We'll look up Aubrey here. Hold on. Wrong one. She was what? Let's see. Shooter has gunned down 6 victims. Da, 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 da. Who stormed? Okay. Hale shot 9. Yeah, stockpile of gun, or he, she, we don't know. Hale also. The killer had some history there. Targeted attack. They're not really telling me anything about the gender.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the obviously I don't know much about Canada and how they release anything. Um, would that be that they released it just for processing? It's been a weird thing with even the United States and the whole body cam thing.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
yeah, I understand that the video wouldn't be released in Canada because they're too busy engaging in assisted suicide. So,
well, there's part of me that feels like the only reason these things are released in like here is an attempt to try to mediate media spin, but it never works. I mean, the media is going to spin what they want to spin.
well, I think the spin being what the either the police didn't do its job, the police over engaged too quickly. They were
Mm,
dangerous, right? I
yeah.
mean, so the way to make sure that people understand what the police did and they follow proper procedures, saying, here, we're releasing everything,
Yeah.
right? Okay. And you don't have anybody questioning how the police did what they did.
Mm. Yeah,
You
when I
know,
watched the video, it did seem very in order. Like, one guy comes, he puts the gun up, the next guy, he covers the next guy that goes up a little bit forward, then he points and
right.
covers um
Yeah.
so that I thought
You
that
saw,
it wasn't just random, like we're running in guns blazing. It was very calculated.
and you heard only 2 words the whole time: move and go.
Yeah.
Move, go, go. So they were going forward, which again is a complete contradiction to what happened in Uvalde.
Mm.
You know, now, you know, the question, you have both sides, of course, putting up their dukes. One, the side saying we need to get rid of guns, right? And
Mhm.
a gentleman got on my Facebook and said that, and I said, okay, how do we confiscate 300 million guns? He said, well, we really can't. That's out the door, but we can limit ammo. Okay, but are we not going to talk about the 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 elephant in the room, mental illness,
Mm.
and that we are now actually forefronting mental illness and saying they're not mentally ill? Okay.
Well,
Um,
that Dave Chappelle's plan for it is just to increase the price of bullets to like $1,000.
yeah. Hey, that's a plan. Okay. Um, I would like to see the politicians who pass that see how what happens when they try to go up for reelection in states like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, which are big hunting states and gun states.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and that's
um,
the tricky part, right? Is that if we can just pretend like the desires of these people of a certain segment of the population are completely irrelevant, then we could accomplish so much. As long as that segment of the population whose desires we want to eliminate is not us.
right. Well, therapists can no longer talk to people about their gender dysphoria,
Mm,
right? I mean, um, so what we're doing is, so I was watching Jordan Peterson talking to Chloe Cole, who is a girl now suing a medical practice for mutilating her, right? Okay, when she was autistic, she had gender dysphoria, and
hmm
she was doing this when she was a young teenager, and now that she's 19, she's saying I should have never made that decision, And of course, one would look at the parents and say, what you're doing. And she said, my parents were told by the doctor that if she doesn't get this radical mastectomy and surgery, she'll kill herself.
Mm.
And the only way this is going to stop or medical practice do it is suing them.
Yeah.
Suing them into oblivion, suing them so hard and so long that this nonsense stops. This is the worst kind of greed. They make a ton of money off this,
Mm.
and they're telling people. I mean, they're in my mind, those doctors are Joseph Mengele.
I'm not familiar with that reference.
He was the Nazi doctor during World War II in Auschwitz.
Hmm.
He was a horrible human being, right? Okay. You talk to anyone who's Jewish, they know who Joseph Mengele is.
Mm.
And you're seeing doctors who are basically like that, you know. And I find it, um, you know, what scares the heck out of me is the health profession losing any sense of Christian undergirding that they had, right? First, do
Mm.
no harm. I mean, which is actually not even Christian. That's from Greek um, dictum, ancient Greek dictum to doctors. First, do
Yeah.
no harm. And what are they doing? They're clearly doing harm.
Yeah.
And Kaiser Permanente's got a huge lawsuit against it from another young lady. It's so teenage years are rough, especially on girls.
Mm-hmm.
Really rough. And basically, when we accommodate a teenage girl going through difficult times, and then when she gets out of that difficult time, the accommodation we created was actually a bigger problem. And she looks back and says, where were the adults in the room?
Mm. Well, it's this interesting thing that I feel like I've noticed, and I think somebody else pointed this out in the comment section of some video. It's the grown adults, many times parents, not wanting to take responsibility. Like, and I mean, even Zuckerberg had this when he was on Rogan, right? With the whole misinformation. He's like, I don't want to be responsible I shouldn't be responsible for this. And it's like, well, unfortunately, it's your company, buddy. Like, you are responsible for it.
Right.
And maybe, yeah, and you're probably going to screw it up because, everybody makes mistakes. But you have to take the idea isn't, well, if I can just shift responsibility to somebody else. Because again, what a lot of these parents will say, well, it's not my fault. It's I put my trust in the doctors. Well, why would you do that?
Right.
Are doctors infallible? I mean, the same thing could be said of clergy, right?
Well, where's your judgment?
Yeah,
What
it's
you've
like
done is
you have to take your responsibility for the choice
you
that you make.
suspended your judgment. Okay. So the problem with COVID, we're going to follow the science.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're elected, Mr. President, to demonstrate judgment, to
Mm-hmm.
balance competing interests. When we say, I'm just going to follow the science, what it really means is I am advocating my position of authority and responsibility and judgment, and I'm giving it to someone who was never put in this position of authority and judgment. And so,
Or even if they were never put in that position in any absolute sense.
right.
And so it's like, even if I say, you know what, I trusted the doctor.
Yeah.
Maybe I trusted the wrong doctor. But if I find out that I trusted the wrong doctor, I have to take responsibility for what happened. I can't say, well, it wasn't my fault. I trusted
Right.
the doctor.
And that's what you're seeing right now is the memory holding of this. But what we saw was that there was information. What we also saw is that information was actively suppressed by the government.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And yeah, it's interesting stuff. Hey, I got to say adios.
All right, Hank.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I'm not sure what this was in a reference to. Like, I saw, maybe that I saw one of the videos, and there's many. Yeah, I just saw one. the one that was the body cam footage from one of the officers. I don't remember which officer, but yeah, there in that video you see several officers, so obviously there's likely more than just one. All right, guys, I got about 30 more minutes. Anyone else wants to chime in, jump in, comment? Clock is ticking. Hey, Chad. Good morning. How are you? Not much. Just had a brief conversation with Hank, um, but then he had to jump off. He was wanting to talk about the whole Nashville thing, so we talked briefly about that. But good morning, sir.
Oh, hang on a second. Gotta get my audio. You there?
Yeah.
Hi.
All right.
What's new, man?
Man, life. I'm all over the place lately, but hey, that bathroom looks great.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that.
And here's Gavin. Hey, Gavin, how's it going?
What's up, Mr. Gavin?
Howdy. Howdy, rascals.
Howdy, rascals.
I don't think I've heard of this Nashville thing.
You haven't heard about the shooting at the Christian school in Nashville?
I don't pay attention to what most people pay attention to.
Okay. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. What, 3 9-year-olds were killed, and then 3 adults.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
Other than it being really, really tragic, I mean, you have little kids. It's like, man, somebody coming through and doing something like that. What's that?
Homeschool? That's
Yeah,
one thing.
yeah. I mean, it's one of those where the likeliness of something that happened in like a city school, like they are kind of like little fortresses. But yeah, I mean, the police response was fast in this one. I mean, they were like they there within like 14 minutes and like entering, and but it's still like, man, it's not.
How old was the shooter?
28.
She was 20. She was 28.
Yeah,
You got some disturbed people.
yeah, you do.
Pretty sad.
Yeah, no, it was pretty tragic.
Yeah, I don't know what to. There's so much I want to talk about it, but I don't know what to talk about about it.
Well, it can be challenging. I mean, you don't want to ignore things that are far away, right? Just because they're far. Like, it's not. This happened in Nashville, not Chicago. But that doesn't mean it's any less tragic. But the idea of people getting shot and killed isn't exactly something rare for me to hear about. I mean, what, a week and a half ago, somebody got shot in the head and died on my block.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's not tragic either, but you hear about it often, you encounter it often, you become a little bit jaded.
Yeah. It's interesting that you, like, if you take a step back, you and distance yourself from it, you can, which is a hard move.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of tragedy happening every minute all over the world. And so for me, it's interesting how some things get highlighted. That's kind of the reason I stopped paying attention, is because I don't like that someone's directing my attention for their own agenda. Because there's tragedy. I mean, there's tragedy happening at a hospital down the street right now.
Yeah. And so that's why I've in kind of unpacking the Jordan Peterson make your own bed and kind of start there and expand outward. It's like, how can I at least try to focus my attention on some of the tragic events that might be stoppable or helped nearby, and in my spheres, if that makes sense.
What's the common denominator in all the tragedies?
Human beings suck.
Well, it came from, I mean, it comes from somewhere, right? It's a kind of a selfish move in which you're willing to cause harm to others. That's a common denominator, I think. That's a kind of spirit which we could try to make sure that we work on within ourselves, right? Where we're not just being self-interested and being willing to sacrifice others for our own self-interest.
Now you're getting at, you bring up the word spirit there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it happens when a doctor is drinking the night before and has an operation to do the next day, and then ends up burning someone who ends up dying from an infection. I mean, there's so many things like this happens when you drive a car when you probably shouldn't be driving a car, you know?
Mhm.
So that's the spirit. And if you notice, if you really pay attention, I think it's probably there for every person. Every person has to battle that spirit. And it's easy to ignore, and it's easy to believe you're a good person.
Yeah, and it's easy to really I mean, this person did a very awful thing.
Right.
And it's really easy to think, I would never do anything like that. And I might never do anything like that. But a big part of that is the realization that ugliness and evil exists within me as well. And part of my responsibility, or maybe just what I believe, is that I have to try to do battle with that part of me.
Well, yeah, but where my mind is going towards in all this stuff is, how do you talk about a spirit and convey it? Probably, one of the most powerful ideas to somebody who has heard it and doesn't want it anymore, or doesn't know about it. Like, that to me is kind of at the bottom of all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I encounter that a lot, right? In my world, there's so many people that I know that think they understand spirits, or think they understand the spiritual world because they went to church for a period of their life. And so if you were to bring up this, there's a spirit there, they'd be like, no, come on, I've been to church, I know that whole world, And then how do you help them see, hey, no, there's something deeper going on here, and you may have had some experience here, but that's not the whole of it.
Right. Yeah, this is, I think that there's some vital things that we're disconnected from. And I don't know, I think that has a lot to do with it. The idea of what would possess somebody to do something like that. And then even in that language.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever? It's probably not something you want to talk about publicly, but it's like, have you ever been possessed by a spirit of anger? Where you did something you later regretted.
No, I'm perfect, dude. Why would I have to do that?
I was actually talking with my wife about this, and not just my wife, but a few other people in different conversations, about one of the male burdens to a certain degree, especially with large men. Is this idea that I think is illustrated well in the story of Heracles or Hercules, that in a fit of rage, he killed his wife and kids. But the fit of rage was put upon him by Hera, the goddess of marriage. But then he comes to, in the moment of sanity, realize he destroyed the things that he loved the most. And knowing that you can be as strong, as you want to be for the sake of protecting your family, if possessed by that spirit, that same power can be used in the complete opposite direction.
Yeah, there's also a spirit. I've encountered a spirit of delusion. So you can get how does that spirit of anger possess you for long periods of time where it becomes premeditated? It can also be connected to spirit of delusion. It's that's when you mix those together, that's when you get that premeditated stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then what wakes you up out of that? What can kind of bring you, exercise that demon, so to speak?
For me, I could talk about when I thought I had discovered a perpetual motion machine, But I went to the dean of the College of Engineering at Auburn University, and I had my papers. I'm trying to share everything. And basically everyone's like, well, this breaks the laws of physics. It's not possible. I was like, yeah, but can you explain to me why? And I actually had to switch my mind, and I had to say, and this was huge for me. It's like, I had to say, I'm responsible for finding out why I'm wrong. And then once I did that, I went and hunted down my energy losses, and I found them. And so after 2 years of embarrassing myself and thinking that the dean and all these smart people couldn't prove me wrong, I had to do my own work and consider that I might be wrong. Practice some amount of humility. But yeah, so that's the trick, is you have to be able to step back and say, well, maybe I'm not right, and maybe I need to even like red team myself. I need to actually try my best to prove that I'm not right.
The truth will set you free, but it'll ruin your day first.
Oh, it is. It's humiliating whenever you spent a lot of time and energy into something that's a delusion. It's just a humiliating experience, but it sets you free.
Yeah, right.
Well, I think that's one of the primary concerns that people who are skeptical about spiritual matters, they're afraid to be duped because they're swimming in a sea of creatures that aim to dupe them, or they've been, that might be the thought they have. It might not be the truth about the situation. But I felt that way. And, and I've come to realize that, well, that was just what I thought. It wasn't necessarily the truth.
The toughest delusions is whenever it's a mass psychosis, where if you all of a sudden break free from the spell, you're going to lose friends and family, and you're might lose your job. Like, those are the toughest delusions. Like, the ones where you're just one crazy person are a little different. It's the mass psychosis that's harder to deal with.
Yeah.
And there's peer pressures, like who are your family, and who, no matter what it is, you're being, you can feel the spirit of the people in the room, right? So at some point you I don't know, when you practice having the courage to disagree with an overwhelming spirit in the room, you can actually say things that make people very angry.
I have a bit of experience with that.
Yeah.
But it's tricky. But I think that going back to always, this is a biblical principle, right? Worry about the plank in your own eye before you're looking at the speck in everybody else's eye. The constant self-examination. Ought I really to be that confident in what I'm doing? Maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, the media will take a story, and then they'll say, here's Jacob, the problem is, Facciocchi, the problem is, but then they'll put together the solution, and it's like, well, how confident are you that this is the solution? Especially if you're ignoring like that spiritual truth that's at the essence of every single human being, at every moment.
Do you think, like, when Jesus said that was a very enlightenment statement? Think about that. What's the difference between that statement and like the enlightenment idea of individuality?
I mean, what's the difference between that statement and clean your room? Clean your room things a lot like, remove the plank in your own eye before you worry about the speck in someone else's eye.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, and that's the thing is, right, Pajot is forever talking about how enlightenment is nested in Christianity. You don't have enlightenment without Christianity to a certain degree. And so it would make sense that they would unpack something like that. But
I was smiling. I was thinking of our Jewish friends. But I don't know if they agree or not.
Or what I think he says Judeo-Christianity. Because there are concepts that you would also find within Judaism, like rooting from the Old Testament.
And then, I mean, I guess, yeah. I mean, if you're gonna practice being skeptical or something like that, it's like, well, what about the other religions and philosophies and traditions in China? And what about the the whole empire in China, and being able to produce gunpowder, for example.
Yeah. So how I've always approached that conversation, like about like other religions, is like how I would use examples like my brother. I know my brother, but a lot of people know my brother. And all those different people that know my brother know different things about my brother than I do, or they're seeing different traits. And some of those things might be right, and some of those things might be wrong. And some of the things that I know might be right and might be wrong. But we're on this quest to, well, what is it to have real, authentic relationship and knowledge of my brother? And so there are certain elements of like Buddhism, Hinduism that I've looked into. I'm like, okay, that seems to make sense. I don't buy all of it, but I could see how they got here. And how does that affect my look on my own faith? So yeah, that's a framework that has helped me. Obviously, I don't believe that I have it all perfect, but
You don't?
I mean, I'm pretty close.
Oh, thank God. That's why we were talking to you, because we were hoping you'd save us. Do you think it's possible to save a soul?
Not for me.
That's right. I don't know. I know some
I've tried.
Christians who think.
I've never had success with that.
Yeah.
I have been asked, like in a condescending way, how many souls have you saved?
Yeah. Right? What the hell?
But I mean, it's a tricky tension, right? So I mean, as a Christian, right, that if I believe in a heaven, if I believe in a hell, and I believe that there is salvation, how urgent is it for me to work towards that or labor towards that end if I believe it's like the best thing? But it's complicated, right?
What does that look like?
Exactly, because I've known so many people who like are really passionate about I need to get people lead people towards salvation or whatever, and they have these big numbers of people that they have led to the Lord. But if you look at those people like 3 years down the road, many of them hate Christianity and whatnot, and so how much of that effort
to point at Nashville, it's like I'm sure that you could delude yourself into say that you might be saving souls by bringing a gun into a school. Like, I'm sure, like lots of people do all kinds of things, violent, terrible things, because they think they are saving souls and they are somehow being helpful.
I mean, that's a big part of like the Spanish Inquisition and other religious movements, and that, or even the Crusades, we're doing this to save whatever.
Yeah. When I was encountering spirits and just trying to toss them aside, looking for like the Holy Spirit, it's like the key measurement for me, the key heuristic was like, well, does it want me to go out and harm people? Right. And so I basically arrived at just my way is I'm not going to justify the ends, right? With like I will not harm people in order to justify. Like that's my goal. I'm going to try not to harm people as a means to my end. So that's how I judge the spirits.
Yeah.
And if people just did that, I mean, I think the world would be a pretty good place.
Yeah, but what it boils down to is, I think, but they harmed me, and so I need to, like, they can't just get away with harming me. I think that's what I don't know. Maybe I'm projecting there, but that's how I felt in my life. Like, I can't just not do anything. Like, somebody needs to take, play out some justice here.
Yeah, there's that spirit, the spirit of revenge. Something like that.
Also there's a tricky aspect is the spirit of like two things: protection of other people. Let's say my own children. So if somebody's going to harm my kids, is it okay for me to harm them in order to prevent that harm to my kids? That's difficult.
I understand that struggle. Yeah, I'm not providing an answer, but yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not either. I'm not saying that it always is okay, because that can be played with. Even in this whole Nashville thing, that you, like the way that you mentioned, it could be taken that direction. And the other aspect of is certain types of harm good for people? Like the resistance.
Natural consequences come to mind. Like, do I want to inflict the harm, or do I stand by and allow the natural consequences to happen so that the pain can be a teacher?
Yeah.
With my kids, I definitely try to avoid long-term damage, but at the same time, if they get scraped up, it's not. I'm getting better with allowing my kids to get scraped up.
Yeah, or if they get a deep scrape, right? You got to pour alcohol on that scrape so it doesn't get infected. That hurts.
Or I just say, hey, if it gets infected, it's going to hurt worse. And then the next day it's all red and it's hurting.
Yeah.
I mean, how, there's a question is like, how much do you just allow the natural consequence to be there?
Yeah.
So
all right, Kevin, are you cool keeping this going?
Oh.
I got to run.
Yeah, I can probably keep it running for a while.
All right, sweet. You guys have a great day.
Later.
Bye, Mo.
Yeah, I watched the and now this is something I typically never like to do, which is go watch videos of police cam videos, because I always end up feeling kind of like gross after doing it. Anyways, I watched the police cam video of them ending the situation in Nashville, and it's heartbreaking, dude.
Yeah,
it's like, man, somebody had to be put in a position to go and stop this person. And I mean, they were really swift, and I was really impressed with the swiftness and all that stuff, but it's still heartbreaking to watch it. It's like you see a part of humanity that is sad. That has to happen. That he had to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've tried to visualize how you deal with all these issues. It's like you could be proactive. So whatever the law enforcement's doing, if they're doing a good job, they're basically trying to protect that spirit of protection. And then you can, in my mind, you have two situations. You're either being reactive to a situation that's dangerous, or you can be proactive. And so I like the proactive stuff. So it's like, could you put a car out on the street as bait and then have a team catch someone who's trying to steal a car, right? That's the kind of proactive thing where maybe you're prepared and you can handle the situation as best as possible. Whereas it's totally different when you come on a situation that's happening and you aren't prepared.
Well, I think that gets down to the proactive measures are really kind of cultural. And, people can say, well, you can't blame the culture on this. Yeah, you kind of can, dude. We all kind of, I think, have a hand in it. And some of the proactive measures that you take are, how do we get back on track as a and I know there's never been a time when people were totally, put together, and I don't know. I know I sound naive and silly, but I don't know. I think that's what the whole point of culture is to be together and be on the same page, and to be proactive and productive.
No, I think this partly this is the one that a lot of people won't like. It's due to the idea that taxation is theft. So basically our money gets taken from us and then gets used in ways which shape the culture. And then we don't really have a say in how that money is used. So that kind of system is not conducive for responsible people, shaping the culture. It's actually conducive for, I would say the wrong kinds of people shaping the culture. There's a spirit and within the people who make the decisions, which does not know the Holy Spirit, and is incapable of creating a culture that has the right spirit. Another way to say it. I would trace it all the way back to the way we do our taxes and the way we do government.
There seems to be some details on this Nashville thing that mainstream media doesn't want to cover.
I haven't paid attention to it.
And I want to put a big disclaimer before I say any of this. First and foremost, God's grace, I think, extends to all, no matter anything else. God's grace is extended to each and every individual. Some of this, I don't want to target the trans community with this, because what we have is one person, and I don't want to make that one person represent an entire community.
Well, I agree.
But it seems like
agree.
the media is hesitant to cover the fact that this girl was trying to transition to be a man, and that there are reports of a call to arms of sorts within some of this community to pick up arms and go to battle.
What does that mean? What do you mean?
That there are at least some in that community that are trying to escalate the tension.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, in talking about this, I like how you started, Neutrino, because I was, like, it'd be easy to just be like, oh, she was a real piece of shit, and like, like she deserved it all, this or that, and it's so easy to do that, and I think that just so sick of that, and then on the other hand, I don't want to be naive, and I really feel for this person. I do know what it's like to be filled with hatred and sorrow and all of those things that go into that probably go into making the kinds of situations that we're seeing. I've never gone to those lengths, but I've gotten into fights with people. I've dealt with my own demons and stuff. But so like I really feel for this person. And then on the other hand, I think, what the fuck, dude? People, it's easy to say, well, 3 9-year-olds. It's like, yeah, but they're also 3 people in their 60s. But like, what possesses you, dude? And so it's very messy, and it's very sad, dude.
It's kind of left me feeling rather messy inside, because I acknowledge I have some reactionary impulses to this that I don't want to embody and participate in.
Well, I think that's something that we should all be paying attention to within ourselves, right?
I think there are some out there really trying to escalate things and really want that reactionary impulse to be embodied.
There's like a spirit of destruction. There are definitely people who want to destroy. Like that's what I think that's what I've heard Jacob and Jordan Peterson, and he always points at someone else. They all talk against the postmodernists and point at like critical theory and the origins of critical theory, and how basically part of that is to attempt to destroy the systems that are in place, which I kind of have empathy for that, like, because if you want to create something new, there will be a destruction that happens, but there's a right way of doing it. Like if you're as a engineer, architect type person, there's a way to do it such that you don't like cause harm to people, right? you can actually switch over to better systems and evolve systems in a way that is like non-volatile, non-risky, or as little risk as possible. So yeah, there are definitely a lot of people kind of obsessed with destruction with very little thought for what's supposed to be there once it's destroyed.
Yeah.
I agree. 100%. Yeah, I don't really have too much else to say other than the way the media is covering it. And there's some on the left that are kind of talking about, well, that's what you Christians get. And it's like, just trying to fuel that fire, fan the flames.
So what should we do?
That I don't know. I mean, the thought of
we could start a political party. There's all kinds of things that, like, yeah, what do you do about what? Specifically, there's the thing you can do as an individual. Like that spiritual warfare is happening within each of us, but then there's a way of being that we could try to, discover and practice and demonstrate, such that the better way is identified and recognized and integrated, and so that the way that it is now gets replaced by the better way. But that takes a lot of effort. That's like more effort than just self-effort.
That sounds like a much better path than just feeding our own demons, reactionary demons.
So do you think it's possible that this person was prey to I don't know, any number of things, that you don't just you don't just wake up one day and decide things.
I mean, I've encountered the unholy spirits. I've sat around and just allowed crazy thoughts and to move through my mind. It's not hard to become possessed by these spirits, especially if you're doing the gateway stuff. Like they call like cannabis a gateway drug. It's like, well, it might open a gateway to spirits and so if you're interested in doing spiritual warfare and you want to get to know the enemy, maybe you use cannabis to get to know the enemy. And maybe it beats you because you're not as good at doing that spiritual warfare as you thought you were. But yeah, what preyed on this person? It's like, I know in my experience, I could, cannabis, for example, opened me up to a lot of the unholy spirits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's something we all have to be careful of, and I can definitely look back at times in my life where, wow, I really wish I wouldn't have responded that way, or I wish I would have gone in this with this frame of mind.
I think parents have a lot to play. I was blessed to have family that loved me and that expressed love. I think there are people who are raised in environments where they don't get it that much love. They have like a love deficiency. And I don't know anything about this story in Nashville. I'm just saying I've seen that. I've seen people who have love deficiency.
When I look at myself, I had a pretty good childhood. I was blessed with some good parents that loved me. They weren't perfect. There's certainly things I can go back and critique, but
they loved you though.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to the point where I can never even question that aspect of it. I know they love me. I know they loved me then.
That's where I put my faith. It's like, will my children end up doing terrible things in the future? It's like, I pray that if I love my children, they won't, that they will know this power of love and they will want to express it, So, but yeah, I kind of have faith in love. That's how I explain it. I tend to explain it. And the question would be, do the people who cause lots of harm to others, did they have a deficiency in the love that they was impressed upon them by those in their environment, right?
From what I've been able to gather, it does seem like they were at least captured in some ways by certain idea
Andrew.
politics.
Let's go.
Hey, Andrew.
Who are these fine gentlemen?
What up?
Life, how's the Talon?
Good.
It's good.
Well, as far as the things I've heard, this person was living with their parents. She's 28 years old. I don't know how accurate that is, but it doesn't sound to me like, so then it's like, well, what is love? Like,
Baby, don't hurt me.
right. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, there's
Anyway.
one more thing to toss in there is I recall you can do like a Google search, or I could, but it's there's someone who had a tumor in his brain and he went and like did terrible things to his children and wife, and he told them, he said, you need to check out, something's wrong with my brain, and they found a tumor in his brain. So there's all kinds of explanations for how these things happen. It's not always just like they lacked love. Sometimes you end up with a tumor that presses upon some part of your brain that, yeah, what is that like? And when you read the Bible and you say like Pharaoh's heart was hardened, did God throw a tumor in Pharaoh's brain? It's like, man, sometimes there's things outside of our control that really shape our life.
Absolutely. What do you think, Andrew? I'm kind of curious what a younger, more in tune to some of what's going on that level would say about it.
I mean, a lot of thinking is external. It's done through conversations and whatnot. And isolation really isn't good for you, so you end up on the internet, which is why I'm talking with 3 guys on a screen here. But I don't know, there's different corners of the internet.
I was trying to explain to my nephew in high school that I really have struggled to relate with them being in high school. On one hand, I did go to high school. I'm sure there are lots of things that I experienced in my high school experience that people in high school still experience today. But on the other hand, I had no idea the political views of my friends in high school because nobody really talked about it. Nobody really cared about that, which seems completely different than the way it is today.
I don't know, I can't explain why everyone's into politics. I don't know. I guess it's just like personal enough to be somewhat interested in.
Like there's this thing called scapegoating. Like usually when you go and you kill people, it's usually the result of this scapegoating thing. And that's not at the core, though. That's at the core. It gets all the way back to what we were talking about earlier. It's just the spirit of willing to sacrifice others for yourself, or for what you think is good. But yeah, it takes shape as scapegoating, where we want to point out the faults in others instead of look at the plank in our own eye or clean our own room or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was a good thing or a bad thing that we never talked about politics. Now, I think you could make the argument that had we had more nuanced political discussions in high school, maybe we could have slowly evolved to some of this instead of all of a sudden it's a brick wall that we're all running into. Hey, Hezzy.
Hey, guys.
How's it been?
Thank God. Coming back from a long day.
Hedzi, you remind me of a pastor.
Of a pastor?
Yeah, like you
It's the
could have a
button-up
flock
shirt.
of sheep, and you would try to keep them safe and help them.
Oh, no doubt.
What do you think about that?
I think that David and Moses and many others are all shepherds. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like, that is a a model that we see repeats itself many times. A shepherd requires many skills, both like dealing with the individual sheep or part of the herd, the full herd, following them, physical strength, being aware of the seasons, being aware of boundaries. So there's a lot to learn from being a shepherd. So I could only hope that if I had the chance to have a herd, I would take care of them well.
Who all on the stream when they were growing up heard the words, "We don't talk about religion or politics"?
I've heard that.
I've been
I
told
haven't.
that repeatedly
Me too.
throughout my life.
Right. Now I think,
Maybe
oh, go ahead.
for me, just like not at the dinner table, but other than that, it's free roam.
I will say other things took its place. Like we had in Alabama, we have Auburn football versus Alabama football, and we had rivalries, and people would fight and break televisions. So I mean, you can have placeholders for your religion and politics as well.
Well, that's right. That's what I'm getting at. It's like the idea of what, like we are seeking machines. Well, we're not machines. We're made to seek. And I think when a culture is repeatedly told over and over and over and over and over and over and over that, something like, we don't talk politics or religion, more so probably religion. And you have the foundations of the culture become invisible, or to some non-existent. Something's gonna rush in, and of course, and we've heard this argument a million times in this corner. Like you get something like your religious structures, and you throw them out, something will rush in, and of course, like one of the major what's up, Bruce? One of the major things that where our attention is grabbed by these days is like the internet, and what sells the internet? Politics and sex. And so like that's your God, and like when you seek that God, the God of the phone or whatever, or the internet, more than you do your actual God, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
If you're like me, I guarantee you, I have no problems being honest in this way. I spend more time on my phone every day by far than I do seeking God. It's just a fact, because it's like this simple, easy lie to embody. You don't think that the things are going to fall apart? I'm one of many.
Yeah, your phone has these feeds, and you're feeding on it.
I think the
Chad,
other thing. Oh, go ahead, Kez.
Go ahead, Bruce. Go ahead, Bruce.
Oh, I was to say the other thing is it's not merely that people are talking about politics more than ever. I think it's more things have become political. Like the framing has been put around all aspects of life in a political light. And so, whereas before there may have been a bit more nuance around what was considered a political topic and what was in the political framing, and now you've seen the framing of what is political expand out to almost every aspect of social life. So you'll see, for like the comment as to why are children in high school or middle school engaging in the political sphere? Well, I think it's because they've been grafted into the sphere with the frame change. And so even just what they choose to eat becomes political, or what they choose to engage in is a political sphere. And so the internet sort of as it permeates society and more people get online younger, what they find is their tribe or their interests are politicized. And so now it just by default becomes a political frame for them. Now, I don't think that's correct, the framing. But I just think that's why it's become so popular to get into the political conversation, because almost everything is some identity political narrative, no matter what it is, you know.
I would agree with Bruce with that regard. I'd also just mention on the first thing you asked about not talking about politics and religion. So I guess I'm the odd man out because our definitely our Shabbat meals are always around like the religious, specifically about like the weekly portion, and then we see how the weekly portion relates to what's going on the day to day. And then there's in Israel specifically, there's always a political brouhaha happening. So I don't think I've ever avoided a conversation like that. And definitely at now as an adult at my Shabbat table, and anytime someone new comes to the table, like a guest that we've never had before, I make it very clear that almost any topic can be discussed at the table. Just if you disagree, the understanding is that you're going to have to steel man the person's position and then say whatever you want. But like the idea is to have a robust conversation, a nuanced conversation. So that's just on that end. But with regards to what Bruce said, I definitely think that like the framing has changed, and it's another example of how we are ill-equipped to deal with social media or its changes, because the fact that everyone has a phone in their hand and the political sphere today, like Bruce said, really permeates everything, and it's with you all the time. So it's very, very hard to avoid that framing. And then and it's one of the only things that's still sort of, you could be a very popular YouTuber or a very successful person. The one thing that still gets in your way many times is policy, and that is being dictated on the political level. So that is it seemingly that's like the last game in town where you could still make significant power grabs. And again, with social media, that's exacerbated.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew that you would be the one in the group, Shezzy, that would actually not be told we don't talk religion or politics. I just had this feeling because you're in a culture that is deeply wound up with both of them.
He also taught us how to, at our own dinner table, to do it properly as a shepherd, if we want to learn from a shepherd.
That's a nice defense against the dark arts there.
Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I think that's something here in the U.S. we really struggle with, is how to disagree properly. There's an absolutism that seems to be spreading all over the place, where if I can find one thing that I disagree with you on, that makes you a bad person, and there's nothing to talk about, which is horrible.
It's even worse than that. I would say I'm proud to be an agnostic. Like, there's many people when they say if you sit on the fence, you're evil. You can't sit on the fence. Like that's actually what I've experienced.
So would we say would it be fair to say that we are all caught in holy wars of some sort, and that we're all social justice warriors of our own camp, even though some of us would hate to use that language?
Yes, I would say that.
I think there's a lot of truth in that.
The term social justice to me is like an indicator of again, it's a good sign overall. It sort of matters how far you zoom out and how your perspective, because if you look back, 200 years, no one was talking about social justice. So like again, I look at the population and let's say the woke mob as, in theory, a lot of the ideas are admirable. However, its implementation and at certain times, some of the philosophical underpinnings of some of them are skewed. However, I think ultimately it's for a good cause. So that doesn't mean we need to bow our heads to the woke ideology. It doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be fought or reoriented. But the fact that there's a massive crowd of people that is trying, and again, they're doing a poor job at this, but trying to be fighting towards justice, that is a win for society. So again, if you zoom out, I look at it as being like a win. if we zoom in, we clearly are still dealing with a lot of these birthing pains.
Well, I think,
But
yeah. I think this discussion's social justice may be somewhat new as a term, but the strive for justice, the discussion of justice generally, that's very old. And so again, I think the frame changed a bit. You can blame it on, postmodern Marxism or some other position like that, where everything is boiled down to this social fabric and power dynamic struggle. So it's the haves, nots, proletariat, bourgeoisie, if you want to look at origins, but
but
the
could you
struggle
blame
for justice
that?
is there.
Could you blame that, or I think you'd have to blame it back on those that are selling the idea and the things that are in the palm of our hands, because you can't really blame. I mean, it'd be easy to place some blame on them, but then it's like, who's getting the clicks and what are the clicks equal? And I think that has a lot to do with it. Because in the culture that you live, what are some of the cultural tragedies that fall upon you guys, and where do you think that comes from? I know you guys just had a shooting over at a place of worship not too long ago, but is that a common thing, or do you have what kind of things like that in your culture do you have, and what do you think is at the stem of that?
what's at the stem of that? Well, that is a complicated question. Let me just take a step back for a second. About again, in Israel, it's a little more specific because sort of the common denominator between everyone is that they're mostly Jewish, and it's much easier to use terminology like we have to stop fighting because we're brothers. I don't know how much weight that carries, like in the state. If you say that, if Biden says like we have to stop this, we're brothers. I don't know if people in the states necessarily feel like brothers, specifically with how it's also your political system is also built out. Just the fact that there are different states. So in Israel, you have right and you have left, but the attitude is that like 1 or 2 generations back, it's basically all the same. So that is sort of the common denominator that constantly keeps on keeping people together, which allows for a very unified culture, relatively speaking. However, the kind of and I would also say like you just mentioned the shooting. It depends what kind of political issues you're talking about. Security issues in Israel almost always unify people, because if it's coming from an exterior or interior threat, but whether it be Palestinians or outside terror, it goes back to a line that secular Jews would say to Orthodox Jews, which is, Hitler didn't care whether I had a skull cap on my head or not, right? He had his lists of who's Jewish. So everyone in anyone that is good enough for Hitler is good enough for this club, basically, of being brothers together. So that is constantly unifying people, and add on to that the history, blah blah blah. As far as like what's stemming us, like what are the cause of issues, like in Israel, there are religious tensions with how to identify, what Jewish means and how that relates to policy, and it also relates to how if we're going to create a large tub to act as a home for all these Jews, how do these Jews see their lives being practiced? Like they're all, law-abiding citizens, but if some of them are going to say that our value is to be studying religious texts most of our life because we believe that is what kept us alive up until now, and that's what's going to keep us alive in years to come. And then you have other people that are saying, okay, but we are, there is we're all in the army, and you guys are not doing your part. And then we're paying. None of you guys are working because you're studying all day. So your wives are working in a low-paying job, and that means the benefits, all the taxes that the high-tech industry is producing, is not being split evenly because not everyone's working the same. However, there's still that tension, which is we still value the fact that you're learning. We just need to find a balance of like, what does that mean that like we're going to work more and there's a part of the population that's going to work less because we value the fact that they are learning ancient texts. So again, religion is very, very mixed into a lot of these decisions in Israel. I don't know if that answered your question or made it more complicated. Sorry?
What about media? It seems to me that media focuses and shines a light on certain things, and like I suspect that you do have crazy people who are delusional in every place, and then there's a question of does the media, how does the media respond to crazy people doing crazy things? And I say that word crazy, it's just, you can call it sick, you can call someone who won't, whatever you want to call it. But the point is like, how does the media behave?
Do you mind giving me an example of what you mean by like someone doing something crazy and like what that would be like in the States? I just want to make sure I understand your.
Yeah, there was a mention of something that happened in Nashville where, I guess someone 28 years old ended up killing 3 9-year-olds and then 3 adults in a school.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing gets media coverage, even though, like I was saying, like these kinds of tragedies happen all the time everywhere. And so there's a choice that happens on what you should pay attention to. And I'm wondering, is there a difference between your country versus our country and how the media behaves?
So, like, it also has to do with the size of the country. But like, if there was a shooting in a school, it would be national news all over. It affects everyone very, very quickly. And also because of like, the 6 degrees of separation in Israel, very quickly your neighbor is related to this person. So it very quickly becomes personal. So, devastating things like that become highlighted.
The size is important there too.
Yes. There's a political bent in the country, like I think like in many countries, that it definitely leans a lot more left. And hence, the media with its own agenda will focus on settlers rioting or sometimes they come out against the religious folk as well. And that is an unfortunate bias. However, and this is a tension, when it has to do with dealing with, let's say, Palestinians. So like an extreme example would be during one of the heated times Israel was dealing with Gaza. One of the prominent left-leaning newspapers called Haaretz had on the cover page had a list of pictures of all the Palestinians that were killed during this conflict. Now they got a lot of pushback because the pushback was like, wait, I don't get it. You're just showing all the Palestinians that were killed, and you're not showing any of the Jewish or Israeli civilians that were killed. Like, don't you think that's kind of nuts? That like, do you understand, quote unquote, who the enemy is and who your civilians are? The flip side is they're saying we know that we're the good guys. So our focus should always be on like the damage we're causing. Like, we're not saying that that it's not horrible that that Jewish people or Israeli civilians were killed, but we're constantly stressing the point that we need to be as careful as we can in these actions. And I'm trying to be as like charitable as I can towards their explanation. So you sometimes have a sense of sort of self-hating sort of attitude that you could get on the left. So maybe that would be an example where they sort of like go a little crazy.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's really important is the size.
Yeah.
That's also, that
the size of New Jersey.
Size matters. Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, I think it's a microcosm of the macrocosm.
Yeah, we spoke about this neutrino a little, I think, on like one of the chats, that I do think that even, like I was saying, a more unified country like Israel is still dealing with the global issues that we're all dealing with, globalization and like the political changes exacerbated by social media. And I think the whole craziness we just had in Israel over the last few months was, really had to do a lot with suddenly it all, like, you need to realize that even if it doesn't matter whether I think the prime minister is right or wrong, in today's world, when the prime minister starts get bombarded within one day from all these different countries saying like, well, we're really not happy with what we're seeing over there, that is a tremendous amount of pressure that leaders just didn't have to deal with back in the day. And I don't think any leader, and you could still see this with, I don't know, there's some Republican, I don't know if it's like a governor or a senator, but he got into like some trouble for like, they caught him like, I don't know, like I think he was talking to some underage like young guy online or something like that. And the point is, sorry?
It would be nice if they could still man each other, right? Like you're saying, like you encourage at the dinner table. It's like even at an international scale, it'd be nice to make sure that everyone can still man each other.
It would be nice. You would think that would be like the very least where like, let's say Bibi would be like, Joe Biden, you and I have conversations about maybe nuking Iran. Do you think maybe you could just give me a call beforehand and ask me like what you're seeing before you send out like a press release saying like you really hope democracy is going to remain in Israel? Like, okay, is anyone that was pro the prime minister thinks like they don't want democracy? But either way, I don't think you still have. I think you have a whole population that thinks like, oh, I'll tweet this or I'll say this and then I'll deal with the repercussions. And the repercussions in today's day and age are, if you say something off color, you literally might be fired, or you might be, you might have millions of people immediately outside, like social media ripping you and then texting your son and doxing your son. And these are not things that we still how we.
You're roboting, Hezzy.
Arrow. Sorry.
You roboted just a little bit. Yeah, it's
all good. I rambled.
To me, it's interesting that the microcosm of the dinner table and your relationship with people in a room can stretch all the way out to the proper way of being at an international level. But yeah, is there a time when you should be just like trying to peer pressure someone and not even listening to their side or even acknowledging their view? It's like, is that ever a valuable is that a move that people should do? Like that's kind of the spirit of being willing to sacrifice others for your own benefit or what you think is good.
Sometimes I wonder how much of that is actual care for the topics, or is it like more about attention seeking and like the idea of being right equal something to like attention seeking, like when those people posted that newspaper you were talking about, Fezzi.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Like, was that a real, genuine, heartfelt move, or was that attention seeking?
Virtue signaling.
Right, and not even for the sake of virtue, because like that in itself too is another layer of cover. It's like, and how much of that are we telling ourselves? Well, this is for because I believe that this is right, or I believe in justice. It's like, how much of it is attention seeking? I wonder.
It has to do with framing, because if, for all intents and purposes, you think that there was a Palestinian population, a whole group with its own culture and its whole history living in Israel for all these thousands of years, and you came in and just are creating an apartheid, then yeah, you have a real issue, because like, why are you here? And it really matters how many people you've killed, because like it's so much worse every time, because and there's a tremendous amount of guilt on top of that. However, if you feel that it's your homeland and promised to you and you got it legally and you're not an apartheid, then the framing is very different. Like, obviously it's horrible that Palestinians were killed and civilians were killed. However, it's part of a battle, a righteous battle. I'm doing it to save my civilians, and then there's a lot less guilt. So if I run this newspaper and I feel like we shouldn't be here, then my framing is going to be like, this is what I want to stress.
What do you think, Andrew, as far as in school, are people allowed to think openly without fear of being criticized for wrongthink or persecuted for wrongthink?
I mean, I don't know. For you guys, all this social media stuff is like political, you know. That's where it flows downstream. But for us, it's us youngins. It's kind of cultural because we all grew up with it. You know, we're all affected by it. Like, I don't have much social media at all. I'm pretty much on Discord and YouTube. And
Good.
yeah. Most kids my age use Instagram or Snapchat or some Be Real or some sort of thing. And I can tell that I'm missing out on conversations. I've got no idea. I mean, I don't know what I'm missing out on, but you see, it's like a constant reframing. What was the subject? All this virtue signaling and whatnot. Yeah. Without social media, I can't virtue signal. I'm not too sure if that affects my friendships or whatnot, but I don't know. My position is that I don't care about virtue signaling, and if my friends care about virtue signaling, then it doesn't really matter to me, my relationship with them, you know? So I mean, maybe my suggestion is to not so much care about the virtue signaling and more care about the actual harassment. I don't know.
I still think we have a gap between. There's like a generational gap. I'll give you an example. So you're gonna go on Instagram. I mean, YouTube has it as well right now, or like TikTok, and you could just scroll, right? You have like the instant scroll that just like next video, and then you have like little political takes like that are in shorts, and it's crazy to try to like take a whole, like an issue of race and then put it in a short and then have it as part of a scroll. So, and there is a whole generation that is sort of engaging in that way, yet their parents talk to them at a completely different pace, and their teachers talk at a different pace, and the lessons are on a different pace. So I don't think even people realize that, like, it also has to do with like attention span. Like if a parent wants to start explaining to a son right now a story that's going to go over 5 minutes, you're really risking your kid being like, listen, Dad, I love you, but like, what's going on? You know what I mean? Like, you've been talking for 5 minutes, like, I can't, like, and I don't, again, this also relates to sort of what I was saying about like policy and politicians. It's sort of like the politician is giving like a great example, but if he's going to talk over 5 minutes, it sort of becomes irrelevant. And on the flip side is we've entered this amazing era of the long form conversation. However, politicians, as we see, avoid that because the mask slips after an hour. You can't keep up this like set charade you have going on. And if you're going to talk to someone for 3 hours, you're going to be exposed. And I think we see that no one really wants to be exposed because they don't know how to explain long form. They know how to do like what they know how to do. So we're really stuck with like these two extremes again.
I think it's interesting that you called them a scroll. I don't know. That's just
It's like
words.
You're like,
oh, sorry.
Yeah, I didn't mean like parchment. I just meant like the act of like scrolling in your phone.
Yep, you just keep going and going and going.
No,
Well,
I
it's
understand.
How the internet used to be.
I understand that, but there is words mean things. I understand. I know what you meant, but I'd never thought of it before, and how like, because I do think about like the kind of in hidden religious actions that we're engaging in, and like the idea of a scroll, and we treat this stuff. It's the word, I don't know.
To me, a lot of this comes down to how should the U.S. handle TikTok? On one hand, it's a Chinese company that I would argue does not have our best interest at heart. Not that I can really say that about some of the US companies. But at the same time, to say, oh, well, this is causing damage, so we need to ban it. Where now we're editing speech. Where do you draw the line? Some of that's icky too.
Yeah, that's interesting. Hezi, how do you handle being a father with children and devices and the internet, and how do you plan on handling it over time?
Such a good question. I'm just gonna let you, just taking a step back. Elon Musk and a few other people recently just came out with a letter asking OpenAI to not move forward anymore with GPT-4 until we figure out the safeguards. And it's a conversation where you're saying about TikTok, but we are just nonstop evolving, and like we already realize that like it's already more than we can handle. It took us like 8 years to figure out that social media is really like screwing up people, and like now we've already came out with a way more novel technology, and we're like, wow, this is really nuts. And everyone's like, yeah, this is really nuts, but like no one is stopping, right? And it's very hard to stop. But so like I don't know, but like I'm with you that we don't want to stop free speech. Like banning TikTok. On the other hand, it seems like Elon Musk is saying, and I don't know if it's even possible, like we just need like a pause. We need like a moment to catch our breath as a society and be like, what is it that we even want? I don't know if it's possible to do. Back to like my little microcosm in my house. So I have a no screen policy. The kids could only use screens on Friday. And as in when they come home from work, they do their schoolwork and they play a little, and then they could watch like a movie, a show, something like that. Having said that, like I have like I don't get stuff done, and like the baby won't stop. Like she could put.
Oh, the internet connection. We're getting to the good part. The baby starts complaining and
on some sort of like
Yeah, this is I think this. I didn't hear everything.
Kid show for something like that. I think they're still young enough where I would be okay.
Yeah,
and that's really just more
just in case if you get this. Yeah, so like I'm a father, and like to me that's a microcosm. When you ask, well, should the nanny prevent us from using TikTok? It's the same thing as should. And let me unmute you, Hezi. You were roboting. There you go. You're unmuted.
I don't know if you guys could hear me or not.
We lost you when you started talking about the baby can start getting fussy, and you might.
Yeah, I was gonna say if the baby gets a little intense, I tell my wife that she could like pop something on. But even the things that they watch on Friday, it's pretty monitored. Like I don't want them to watch shows that like the characters are like insanely sarcastic. I don't want them to watch shows where like the kids are assholes. I don't know. There's like a show called like Captain Underpants, and the kids are just like nuts. So like, there's nothing like educational about it. It's just like kids being assholes. So like, I don't need like my kids watching that. There's other shows where I show them like older cartoons or older stuff that like I watched when I was younger. So like, I let them watch things like that. There's no social media, zero, zilch. I mean, I don't have any social media, neither did my wife. So there's nothing like that. Yeah, so I now I'm a little nervous that my oldest is getting to an age where I don't want it to be that he's going to be at his friend's house and his friend's going to be like, do you want to play like Nintendo with me? And he's like, sure. I don't even know how to use like my fingers on this machine. But I think that like he's going to, he'll get the hang of it when it becomes relevant. Like in school, they have a computer class and like, they play around with like little things like that. But when they come home, I just don't think they need, like really any of that junk. Or like I said, like I put on a movie that I think is like worthwhile for them to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really interesting topic. Like because it goes down to me as a father and how I should treat all of this technology in my home. And then there's a question of, well, what kind of technology should we be releasing into the world? And maybe we could make informed decisions about this.
I don't want any, like, I don't have any like Alexa or anything like that in the house. Like my my sister has that, and it's just like a very eerie interaction when I see like her kids just start like asking like a Alexa a question. My sons are aware, like my two older sons are aware that like I have a supercomputer in my hand, and they're aware of it. Like they know to be like, well, you know, check on Google. They're like aware of that, and that's fine.
Literally,
Like
a
I don't mind like
supercomputer.
whipping it out if there's something like, yeah, I call it that, and they know it's called that, and they also know that society, like my oldest son knows society is trying to get that into our head. Like he's aware that that's like where we're going. I might lose you guys because I'm going into a tunnel.
Well, you're teaching them to be that you are cautious, and we need to be cautious. That in itself seems important. Hey, Grim Grizz.
Hello, Grim. Yeah, I teach them to be. I'm teaching them to be cautious about it. I teach them that it's like it's an amazing novel thing. I constantly try to frame it within like this is another tool that God, you know, gifted us with our capacity to understand things and do things, to build a tool like this, which allows us to do so much good in the world. You know, so there's like a religious framing around like, you know, why would a novel like technology like this even exist? However, my son is aware of like cloning, CRISPR, those kind of things. The question is, and I don't have the answers to this, which is, I don't know what world he's going to be in 5 years from now. I don't know what the technology is going to offer, and I don't know like what his school is going to integrate. So it's very difficult to sort of move forward, and I just hope I'm not being a hindrance on him.
Well, love them. I put a lot of my faith in love. What do you have to say, Grim Grizz?
Well, I was out there just watching, and to Hezi, I'd ask, do you tell your kids to watch like the things they're denied, to watch what it does to their friends? Like the use that they're denied? Because it seemed like, why can't I do what everyone else is doing would be a problem for a father.
So I definitely have that question. And at this age, the answer is, well, first of all, I do give an explanation, right? I tell them, like, that's not how we are going to speak. Look how these people are talking to each other. That's not how we talk. That's not how God wants us to be acting or talking. But it's very much, you know, you guys are extension of me.
You must be in that tunnel.
Meanwhile, I wanted to ask Andrew if weaponized normalization was a concept that had entered his lexicon, or whatever concepts enter.
Sounds cool. I mean, it has now, so.
Because like I was thinking the way the Instagram or the Snapchat groups is like, those are little hive minds, and like people that like he was saying he doesn't know what they talk about, right? Somebody could be activate cells of people that use like specific social networks to behave in a certain way, and you know,
okay, that comes with
interior beast. You were no.
I popped him out.
That way he knows he's gone at least, right?
Well, I can pop him back in once his screen starts moving.
I don't have any kids, but it seems, if I can put myself in a parenting perspective, how am I supposed to navigate this landscape? It's so much so fast, and most parents don't really have time to be fully in tune what's going on the internet. Seems like an unfair ask in a lot of ways.
Talk to me.
I was thinking the other day. I don't know how it came into my mind, but I ended up putting it in a box called like bastard prawn. But there's this scene in Braveheart, right, where after the kid's dad's died, his uncle comes in and they're sitting there talking, and his like they're praying in Latin, and the kid like lets the uncle know he doesn't know, and the uncle's like, we will have to remedy that. And I think that attitude is the one to take towards parenting. Is like always hold in your mind the man and the character of the man that's growing inside that child, and is what you're cultivating. And if you can express to them why you're doing it that way, like, hey, we're in a spiritual war here. I know it looks like a party, but maybe that helps.
Hey guys, I'm sorry I was cut off.
No worries.
So, I hope I'm not cutting in the middle of someone's speech right now, but as far as what I was telling my kids, for what Grim was asking me, like, how do I explain to them what everyone else is having? So, well, generally speaking, I tell them that with freedom. So, you're telling me you want to watch this thing and you think you can watch this thing. Did you clean your room? Did you listen to mom and dad? Did you do the things you're supposed to do? Are you acting as an individual that is making wise decisions? And if the answer is no, then you're not in the position to make those kind of decisions yet. You will get to make those kind of decisions when you show mom and dad that you are taking responsibility and you are mature enough to do that. And so far, you can't do that. Like, if we asked you to do X and you didn't do X, then you're not fully grasping what it is that's being required of you. And if you're not fully grasping that yet, then you're still under our responsibility. And these are the tools that I could provide you with. And my boys know that it's in Hebrew. It's called a statement. A line which is Sof Maaseh b'machshava tchila. The end of the deed starts with thinking first, right? So I explained to them that, like, you first have to contemplate before you tell me the thing you want or what you're doing. I need to understand that you understand what you're asking for, not because just I want. And I explained to them, Dad wants a lot of things. So I don't know if they always fully understand, but that is the answer sort of they give him. And now and then there's like, it's not fair, it's annoying, it's things like that. So it's all good. You're allowed to be annoyed. And I tell them you're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be mad. You could tell me that you don't want to talk right now. All that, I mean, it has to happen respectfully. You can't, like, lose your shit. But, like, if you want to be pissed off right now, that's totally fine. We understand why you're upset. It's all good. If you want to talk about it, we'll talk about it.
I'm
I
glad
don't know if
you're
that
here.
answers your question, Grim.
I'm glad you're here.
It's like, why don't we call him Papa Hazy? Papa Hazy.
Papa Hazy, it's
Papa Hazy. I like
it
it.
has been the most amazing experience of my life being a father.
Best I've
Hands
had
down.
being on YouTube. See you guys.
Just almost. But I am a strict father. I want to be. I don't want to say extreme, but, like, it's like you're gonna get 100% cuddles and you're gonna get 100%, like, reprimanded. Like, so it's I guess, like, that's my attitude, and I hope, like, that allows them to have, like, a balance where they know that the father that's reprimanding them and being very intense with them, at the same time, like, well, you want me to cuddle with you in bed? Do you want me to walk with you to school? Do you need, like, it's all there. You have me, like, 110%, but it comes with, like, if you want the dad that cuddles and is going to sit with you now for an hour and, like, build the whole Lego set and do the sound effects and do the stuff, that comes with responsibility. Like, that person that you love, like, also doesn't accept you talking that way to mom. Like, it's never going to happen.
Right. Yeah, I guess as a father, I want to limit the content. It's like I want to, at some point they will have access to social media, and so it's you want to make sure that they're ready for it when it happens, that they're prepared as much as possible, and you don't want them to just get blown away with the internet and all of a sudden, like, pornography or something like that. So there's like, I think there's probably the right time to talk about those kinds of things, and
I mean, so
challenging.
So, no, like, no one. I mean, I would like to wait until he's at it. Like, I would like to wait. I would like to wait, like, another 3 to 4 years until he gets, like, a cellular device, like, with, like, internet. That's what I'm hoping I could push for. I have to see feasible. Like right now, like, in the morning he takes a bus to school, he takes a bus back. There's no phone, and my attitude is just like, I didn't have a phone and I dealt with it. In today's culture, that's like crazy. Like my mother-in-law, who's from the States, was like almost had a heart attack when she heard like a few years ago that her first grade grandson is going like to the old city on a 40-minute bus ride with like no phone. She's like, this is insane. And I was like, no, like it builds characters. She's like, what if a kid's bullying him on the bus? I'm like, that's exactly what needs to happen. And then he needs to tell me, and then we'll have to deal with that. But like, that's life. People get bullied. So I'm trying to avoid that. But like you said, Gavin, that I can't tell him like, don't use the internet, because like that is like, a staple of life today. So
Yeah.
it's going to happen when it happens, and then I'm going to try to safeguard as much as possible. But I've spoken to them about, like, to my older son, I've spoken to about sex and like what that looks like. I doubt he was introduced to pornography, but I'm assuming in a year or two some asshole in school is going to do that.
Yeah, I guess the general topic here is guardrails, right? And there's guardrails that depend on where you're at as an individual. Like if you're a parent, you kind of know where your child is at, and then there's these technology, OpenAI and TikTok, and there's a question about the right guardrails that ideally we would all have our own communities and have shepherds, and they would help figure out like the right guardrails for the community and the individuals. But we haven't figured this out, and we're probably suffering a bit because of that.
In the Bible,
Hey,
we often ask like how, like, Jacob and Esau, like how are they so different? How, like, why wasn't like Esau being educated like Jacob was and come out to be like this good little nerdy boy? And the answer we say is chanoch et anar lefi darko, educate the child according to his ways. It's each child is different. My middle child is clearly a middle child, and my oldest child is definitely like a classic older child, and they have their own temperaments. So I definitely think that some customization is required per child. Obviously, that's difficult to do it in a single household if the ages are are very close, because you can't tell like one kid yes and the other kid no. But they're different people. So with my older son, I have like a different sort of attitude than I do with my younger son, just because I see it's different temperaments. Obviously, it's a lot to ask for a parent to juggle that, as you have many kids, it's
that's where you hit the point. Is like some people can handle a level of freedom that other people can't. One child can handle freedom that another child can't. And then, if you take a top-down approach and just say, we're putting guardrails on this tech for all humans, it's like, well, what about the humans that don't need the guardrails? And maybe if they were allowed to go outside the guardrails, they would bring something valuable back for society. It's like, well, I think that's what we're dealing with.
This is where Grim Grizz brings up the, where's our God mask ritual? That's why I wish he was kind of here right now still. Like the idea of going out into the forest and, wrestling a beast, and then they put them, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but I'm wondering if that idea is unavoidable, if that is always happening. And so the God mask that a lot of the rite of passage that we're getting these days is something like, I don't know, whatever this space that we're in now, this maybe the God mask that we have today is one of self-righteousness, and through less action or something. I don't know, but I don't know if I'm making any sense.
Michael, your thoughts?
Right. I don't know if my connection's good, because everybody was kind of robot-y there for a minute. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you.
We hear you.
Okay. All right. My thoughts are, in watching Paul's video from this morning, I think that, there's always going to be a way to exploit any kind of rule or guideline that is meant to curb behavior from the negative aspect. So whatever you're forbidding, and this is even what kids do naturally, you say like, don't cross this line, and they go and they put their toe right on it, um, and so when these new things come up, it's a constant battle to stay on top of the new technology, the new things that are happening. And I think the real necessary solution is to focus on the interior of the person, like where it says the fruit of the spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. And so the idea is that if you do all these things, and if you're embodying all those aspects, which we need God's help to do, and if we realize that, and that's what we're trying to do, then we're going to be okay. And we're not gonna and that's a more effective way than trying to constantly worry about like whatever the next thing that's coming down the line is.
I wanna thank you for that, Michael. I wanna just use this as a little correction, because you're talking about the conversation with PVK that he was talking about, like Dennis Prager talking like on the Exodus thing. Michael?
Yes.
Right. So first of all, just with that regard, I don't know if people watch that. So like Dennis Prager, like his attitude that nowhere in the Bible does it talk about like, that you can't, like, he gave this rule, like you can't make an action, but there's nothing wrong with thinking about some other woman's wife. So first of all, that's not true, because like in the Shema, there's 3 sections. The last section, you take out your fringes that are supposed to symbolize all the 613 commandments, and you wrap them around your finger and you kiss them. And the idea is to look at them and to realize, and you use the word over there, that we are not going to go after our eyes, which we use them for prostitution and lust and things like that. So I don't know what, like, he was feeling like very loose in saying his stuff, but like it is an issue. And as far as rabbis, they definitely created safeguards because of this and said, like, yes, you can't look at a woman, and you can't look at a woman with her hair uncovered, and you shouldn't be spending a lot of time talking to a woman. So the Torah definitely created many safeguards with this regard, and many fences to avoid people stumbling into poor situations. And I agree with you that the focus today, especially as technology, is coming like a tsunami, and this relates to Brett Weinstein's niche switching. In a religious context, and definitely as a social context, like it takes a while for religious law and religious doctrine to niche switch, right? So like, Paul is talking about this, like how is the Christian church dealing with chastity? How is it dealing with homosexuality? In Judaism, we have to deal with the same things. However, the culture is changing so quickly, and the framing is changing so quickly that you're going to end up finding out that there's like many loopholes today that would be okay. Like, for example, what if I would ask Dennis Prager, what if it's an AI woman, right? Can I sleep with her? Because she doesn't even exist. And like, what does that even mean? So that would be where we need to focus on the interior and see what the essence of what the Torah / God, pick your own religion, is asking from us and expecting from us. And the example I'll use, and I'll end with this, which is I'm sure that in the future, when we have self-driving cars all over or smart cities all over, using them on the Shabbat won't be an issue with regards to like lighting a fire or building a structure, which was like, that was the issue with like why we don't use electricity today. That's going to be irrelevant because we're going to say it's all smart cities. No one's touching it. You're not doing anything. I still rather not live in a community where they are driving on Shabbat, not because it is, I think God's offended by it, or because I think it would be like, I'm losing commandment points because I think that's not what we want as a culture. And it's very difficult for us to like now try to focus on the interior when you don't necessarily have scripture that's like pointing that specifically out. So I would disagree with Dennis Prager there, and I would agree with you, Michael, that there needs to be a big focus on the interior. It's hard to frame the interior though with like ancient commandments.
Well, I think really, I think it comes down to whether we really believe there is a God behind the commandments, because we don't get mad when people treat traffic laws that way, and they exploit a loophole, or taxes. If somebody exploits a loophole in the tax code, we don't get upset because they weren't honoring the spirit of the country behind it. But like with the scripture, it's from God. God is real, and he has a personal relationship with each of us, which also means that he has a personal relationship with anybody else. So like whether or not like a woman that I looked lustfully on is somebody else's wife, or if they're single or whatever, like that's still a child of God, and I have to respect and honor that. But the other thing that was making me think about this too is, because in regards to like talking about this school shooting that happened, and like yesterday, so my daughter, she hit her teacher. She's only 3 years old. She couldn't really hurt the teacher, but like but I can't. The fact that like the difference between those things is not like, oh, well, my 3-year-old daughter is very weak, and this older person had a gun, and so that's the difference. Because what needs to change is that I have to correct the behavior in the inside of my daughter's heart, so that she understands it's not okay when you get angry to hit people, and I think that's the thing we have. I don't think we can build a societal mechanism for causing people to consider the inner motives of their heart. That's why we have to do it, on a personal level through relational community and things like that.
Well, before I say something, let's see who's joining over there. Just Us? What's going on, Just Us?
Hey, everyone.
So, tell us some of your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, getting into the social side of things, this kind of, the thing I'm reminded of is kind of the conversation about spirits, right? And it kind of comes full circle in terms of what we really want for our society is to be communing or engaging with good spirits, or the spirit of the good, or something like that. And so that is where, but I mean, kind of to what Michael was saying, it becomes a very local sort of interaction. So when we, when we're with other people, when we have relationships, it's kind of dependent upon whatever spirit is animating all of the people in those relationships to kind of make society work. And so I don't know, maybe that doesn't sound exactly correct, but something kind of like that. I think it really does matter the attitude that people have when they're going into relationships with other people and their interactions with other people. Because like when you have that ethic inside of you, it's going to spill out. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of saying like Christian platitudes of like, it doesn't matter what you say or what you do. In some sense, it matters what's inside of your heart, and that's what's going to lead you astray. And that all kind of comes together for me.
Jacob
Thank
was
you for
talking about.
sharing. That's all
Thank you for sharing.
amazing. Yeah. Hey, I just wanted to say I appreciate you guys. I'm gonna head out, but much love.
Take care,
I was
Chad.
gonna say in response to that, first off, obviously in Christianity as well, but in Judaism you have, to when you start a conversation with someone or you hear someone say something, really, judge them or view them in the best lighting possible. So like even if he came out, against you with like some sort of slur, maybe he misunderstood something. Like the attitude is always try to assume the best. That is a requirement from, or let's say traditionally, through rabbinic Judaism, that's a requirement, right? So that's sort of like your default mode. It goes even to an extreme that even if there's someone that's like completely evil, you should try to find some good at them and then allow them through that good that you identify in them to climb up the ladder so they could actually get to, so they could actually reach the potential that you see in them. And they're only going to be able to reach that potential if you treat them that way. They'll be able to see that that's possible. So that's number one. However, in Judaism, you do have a sense that, while at one hand, if you see and Jacob was talking about this with PVK in yesterday's stream, but Judaism has rebuking someone. You see your brother transgressing, you should rebuke him. However, it needs to stem from love. It's very difficult to have that come from stemming from love, where you're coming out and calling someone out. But I don't think it's turning the other cheek. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because like you could just like ignore what you're seeing in front of you and act like it's not happening, right? Like so it's not just turning the other cheek. I think the attitude should be, I'm turning the other cheek as I'm still trying to engage with you, right? So you can imagine someone smacking you and you're turning the other cheek because you're saying, smack me again because I'm not going away. I think sometimes people think of turning the other cheek as like, yeah, just ignore him and don't think too much about it and keep on going your way and just forgive him. So I think like you could still sort of come at someone and demand some explanation or try to point out where you're seeing they're going wrong. However, that process could be being done while showing them the other cheek.
Yeah, I mean, I
That
think
makes sense.
turning the other cheek is directly related to not taking offense. So, you shouldn't let your own personal offense towards somebody keep you from correcting them in a loving way, or interacting with them in the way that you're commanded to, in a way that's generative and good for the community and yourself. And so I think it's deeply related to like not being.
I was gonna say not taking offense doesn't mean like getting like plowed over them.
Well,
right,
I think in turning the other cheek, if somebody hits you, what's the most natural response? The most natural response is probably that you hit them back, or you want to respond in kind. And by turning the other cheek, you're giving them the grace of saying, perhaps you were acting out of emotion, but now, if that was really what you meant to do, if you really meant to hurt me, you can do that. And I think the desired result, obviously, is that most people are disarmed by that if it's really done. It's like the MLK, the Gandhi kind of nonviolent protest. Like that's the point of it. It's that it's not excusing something. It's saying like, I'm going to take this suffering, and in a way you're protecting that person from doing it to somebody else, maybe, or it is a thing that maybe gets spoken of as like a platitude, and it's not really considered in the powerful way that it should be taken. Because I think about that even like in the story of Cain and Abel, where it says Cain attacked and killed Abel, which means that Abel, it was two actions. So first Cain attacked him, and then whatever Abel did, then he killed him. So he chose not to fight back, or he chose to however he chose to respond there, there was a choice. There was, and that was the righteous thing to do, to not. It wasn't right for Abel to fight Cain, even though Cain attacked him, because that was his brother, and he shouldn't fight him. So,
I guess I'll have to leave on this note, unfortunately, but I guess I'm saying that, like, you smacked me once, right? And I show you my other cheek, right? But I'm saying the other cheek, like you're saying, I'm agreeing with you that could lead to disarmament. Like, I'm disarming him that way. And like, now I see, like, his real true nature, and he doesn't want to hit me again. But my attitude is, let's say he hits me again, I'm not showing him another cheek. The attitude is like, I could show you the other cheek by telling you, whoa, bro, you're way out of line. Right? I'm not going to hit you back. I'm still here engaging in the conversation. You haven't pushed me away. But, like, rebuking your action could still be the other cheek. It means I'm still engaging with you. I'm not giving up on you.
Yeah, I think, it's giving a space. It's not becoming like a doormat.
Right. I guess I would say that's what I would say. Like, not becoming a doormat is very important. Like, because if you wanna still be in there, if you want to still be standing in front of him, if you're going to keep on getting smacked, right, you're not doing anyone any favors. But on that note, catch you guys.
Thanks, Ozzy.
Yeah.
Now, really, a lot of this kind of brings me to what you're doing with trade skills, Michael, which I think is absolutely wonderful, because somebody coming from an electrical background, I look back to all the teachers I had throughout the years in trade skills, and they taught me a lot more than just electricity. I think there's a lot of value in what you're doing there with that. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, what can I really do as an individual? And, my plan is, I will plan to walk this out, personally, at a certain point to transition. If anybody else wants to do a similar thing, that's great. That's my goal, is to get somebody and give somebody that opportunity and try to teach them. Because we just need people to be that example.
So where are you at then, Michael? Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm in Texas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw out, I also had some trade skills teachers that taught me some aspects of how not to handle myself in certain ways. And even though at times that was a little rough, there's still lessons to be learned there. And I guess in some ways I got to tell myself, because a lot of times, you shouldn't be up talking because you aren't this, you aren't that. And there is a self-censorship in some ways where you're scared what lessons you're teaching. And that's a good thing to be cognizant of. But at the same time, I think you can put yourself in a bit of paralysis worrying about that too terribly much from a perfectionist standpoint, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's something I need to learn a little bit more, which is, I don't know if you saw the talk I had with this guy. I call him Papa. Everybody who knows him calls him Papa, but he was a shop teacher, amongst other things, but for like 50 years or something. And like, I just asked him, like, how do you start with, like, somebody who doesn't know anything, with little kids? And it's just like, you just give them a hammer and some nails and a block of wood and let them have fun and make it into a game. And there's like a little bit of danger there, because they could hit their thumb or whatever. But if they're pretty weak, it's not going to be that bad. And then it teaches them a lesson. And then, but once they have mastered that, then that's the way we have to build, like, from our successes. Because I've been in situations where it was really hard for new people to come in because it was too, like, high stakes. The level of perfectionism was too high. There wasn't any room to fail. So I definitely want to I don't want to replicate that environment.
All right, I've got to head out. Great talking with y'all. I'll see you.
See ya.
See you, Andrew. I should probably get going myself.
Well, okay.
It's been great talking to you guys. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.
Well, I don't know if you have to head out, but I was maybe going to ask you a couple questions about like what you're doing, because so I'm in Wyoming, and that's kind of why I was asking where you were. I was like, oh, maybe I could pop down and learn a thing or two, because it's interesting for me. I do like kind of a tech job right now, or a lot of computer work, I guess. But I've been thinking about buying some land and, you know, starting to kind of learn how to do even just like basic contracting skills and things like that, so that mostly because I'm interested in having spaces for other people to be able to like gather and things like that. But I don't know anything about, I mean, I've done a very minuscule amount of like drywalling once or twice. And I was just thinking about, okay, well, you know, I'm in Wyoming. There's a decent number of tradespeople here. And so, you know, maybe I should just try and go find some people who would be interested in passing on some skills, and kind of like what you're saying, come to get to know people, you know, in the community who, you know, are interested in that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, my thought was like, I think, you know, there's some of those people everywhere, and if you find them in church, and if it's people that, you know, go to church regularly, then at least they kind of understand the value of like that community aspect of thing. And I think my thought is that a lot of times there's guys like that, and they probably don't feel as valuable to the church because maybe they don't have like, you know, churches can tend to like overemphasize the on-stage giftings, you know, teaching and speaking and playing music and things like that. But that other stuff is just as useful. And so like that's my goal is hopefully to get like a network of people and places, kind of figure out like, you know, where they are and who knows how to do what, so that maybe people could, you know, people want to move somewhere where they could learn something, or just to find, you know, what's out there. So
yeah, I think it's really
do you
interesting.
If there's any, do you know of any churches locally that you could check out that are, I mean, because probably pastors usually know like who in the church can do that stuff, and then
I mean, I've been to a few churches, and so I'm in Laramie. Not that that means anything to you, but it's a small town, but we've got a lot of churches, and so yeah. But you know, I'm kind of coming out of, I guess, working pretty long hours and stuff like that, and so kind of had not very much social life, locally speaking, for a while. So I'm trying to kind of get some connections to, you know, to my local church and to people who are here. And I think there's a lot of great people, you know, that go to my church and who would be maybe willing to do some stuff. Although, you know, I don't know anyone specifically off the top of my head, but, you know, I'm going to try and get out there and meet some people, which is hard for me to do. But, and, you know, I'm hoping that I'll see some of the people who are in the trades. And I mean, really, I'm happy to meet anybody, but specifically for that, it just seems like, I mean, I really agree with what you've been saying about the way that doing specific like projects, like even in my work, I feel like a lot of I get actually a pretty strong sense of purpose from just being able to work on a project and, you know, build something that is meaningful and takes a certain level of skill and, you know, just develops that way. And I don't know if all men are like that, but I think there's a piece of that that pretty much most men have. And I really see a big problem in our culture is basically the lack of communities of men. And so I think, doing something like what you're talking about with this trade school and getting together with more local men doing, localized projects, it just seems very clear to me that you could have some really great results in terms of community and in terms of the projects themselves even, and just like that would be a really great thing. So I'm just trying to get in on that a little bit, so.
Yeah, the connecting part is tough for me. Like it's not easy. I think it is tough for a lot of guys. Like that's the thing. Like guys that are really social, they just both be social with each other.
Right. Yeah.
I think, but yeah, it is that thing. Like if you can get in a position where, if you're volunteering or something and you get to actually work with somebody, like that's the only way I feel like I'm good at getting to know people. Like I don't know how people just like make friends out in the wild or whatever. I think it's pretty tough. So
yeah. Well, I should probably get back to work, but it's good to, I've been trying to hop on.
All right.
This is only my second time hopping on a stream, but I think trying to get more involved with you guys might train me on how to get more involved with my local community. I don't know. So, but it's really good to be able to talk to you people. And I think your project is great. So that's frequently why I hop on. I see you and I'm like, oh, I feel like I could talk with you about something. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you want to share it with like the pastor at your church or whatever, that way he can kind of get an idea what, that way, because that's what I'm trying to do is just get the word out or whatever.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I think I'll do that. I'll try and get some people together here, and if we get a little group going or something, maybe I'll send you a message or something. I don't know where to find you, but I'm sure I'll see you around. So.
Yep, I'll be around on these streams from here now and then. So.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, and I'll see you around.
All right. All right. See you later.